Welcome. I am Diane Wild. I'm chair of our Legacy Endowment Committee, and it's very nice to see so many familiar faces in the audience. I appreciate that. We are actually doing this on Zoom as well, and so it will be recorded so that people might be able to come later and watch segments of this. So I would say welcome to Are Your Ducks in a Row? I should have brought some props, but they are all in there as well. Also, Mike DeWeese, who can cook, who can do finance. I asked him if he could sing, and he said no, but he can do it all. So he's managing the Zoom situation in the back, and if we have any questions that come that route, we'll let you know. But also want this to be more just casual, open-ended, so that if you have questions, we'll just try to deal with them. Are you getting a lot of echo? I'm hearing echo. Okay, I'm getting yes. I'm getting yeses and nos. Okay, well, just as a preface for right now, as you can see on the screen, the definition of Are Your Ducks in a Row would be to say, are you well prepared for something that is about to happen? Are you well organized? So to that end, we'll start with the little question and answer audience participation part. So, and just a little preview of what will be coming the rest of the month, if you will. So raise your hand if you have a will. Okay. Would you keep your hand up if you know where your will is? These are trick questions. Do you know? Keep your hand up if you know what the law is in Tennessee if you do not have a will. All right. This looks like halfway up. Okay. Okay. Hands raised. If you have a durable power of attorney. Okay. Good. Sam? I'm not seeing a hand back there. Who has a health care power of attorney? Who has ever been the person who was appointed as the health care power? Yeah, I've done that too. Okay. Okay, here's a tricky one. Who has made funeral plans, specific funeral plans, so that no one else has to do it? I'm about this far. Not this far, but this far. So, and Marshall is too, apparently. So, but anyway, these are some of those hard end-of-life kind of questions, and it's not really end of life, it's just getting your ducks in a row for later on down the road. What we're going to do tonight is to really talk more about the endowment and specifics about, well, just endowment in general, and then our endowment specifically. And so I will try to move into that. Okay, you can move on to that next one. Thank you. These three lines are really quite, a pack a punch, if you will. So what is an endowment? It is a donation of money or property or stocks or life insurance. I mean, there are many, many ways to make an endowment gift. And I'm sure you receive things all the time from nonprofits, which frankly we are too. But the purpose of an endowment is to create investment income. That's a key word, income from the endowment to be used for a specific purpose. And so most entities, when they're working with prospective donors, are going to try to match that donor's wishes with the endowment gift so that you're honoring that person's wishes, but it will tie into whatever the mission is of that, of this church or that university or whatever. The Book of Discipline of the United Methodist Church is the, I guess, overarching organization that decides what we do and when we do it. And so our endowment is authorized by the Book of Discipline and granted by the Charge Conference. So kind of a big overarch and then a more local vote. Some smart people in the past looking at the fact that we had investment money in various accounts. We had some bequest money in various places, and here, there, and yon. And so put those monies together to establish our endowment. This was in 2002. And some of the names like that may be familiar to many of us just because we've been here a long time, and maybe some not familiar. I mean, obviously, Whitechapel, J.J. White, the Whitechapel Fund. There's a youth ministries, Willis, Betty and Charlie Willis, Hamp and Fran Burkhalter. I mean, I can see these people sitting in church. Can't you see them sitting in church? Buttry, I mean, those are my parents. I'm very proud of that. Tom and Betty Cloyd, whom you will remember as former minister. You may not be familiar with Nelson as a name or Sadie Toon Wilson as a name, but bequest money that has come in over time. So we're always standing on the shoulders of somebody who came before us. I guess the main reason, why would you even have an endowment in the first place? And an endowment provides several things. It will provide a means, a vehicle, if you will, to make a lasting contribution to an organization. And of course, specifically, we're interested in this church. And by saying it's a lasting contribution, it's not going to go down in value. It's only income that is used to, for expenditures later down the line. So whether, it's a small memorial gift for someone who has died, or whether it's a gift that comes from your will or your estate, the corpus, the balance, the basis of that is going to stay the same. So you can make a lasting contribution, and then maybe, in 20, 30 years, somebody else can talk about standing on some of our shoulders along the way. Using earnings, using income from the endowment allows us to have funds available for needs that are unbudgeted. They're not in the operating budget. So if we have, this need, that need, whatever, that we have the financial cornerstone that, and frankly, we're very lucky to even have an endowment, but we have a financial cornerstone to help us meet those needs. Requests for funds are managed by the Legacy Endowment Committee, and this will say administrative board, church council, whichever, the term, the current term is, but Marilyn, you might be able to help me here, how long ago it was that we established protocols so that any requests for funds, everything has to be double signed, everything has to have the appropriate vote, so the right hand and the left hand know what each is doing. I mentioned the Book of Discipline, and it gives us marching orders, us being the Endowment Committee, marching orders to manage the endowment funds according to, the donor's wishes, to emphasize the need for church members and really all people to have a will, to have an estate plan. I think plan is the operative word there. To provide information about, retirement, pre-retirement planning, irrespective of how old someone is. What are you going to do? Are you lining your ducks up along the way? To have legal and medical powers of attorneys. And then whatever other directives the church council or the church conference ask of us. There are several members of the endowment committee here tonight, and I greatly appreciate. So I would like to just recognize, let me just run through who they are. And if you're here, you can raise your hand. How about that? As I said, I'm Diane Weil. John Collette, while he's retired now, is still a pastoral contact for us. Valerie Nagelshiner, who is chair of the finance committee, is a member. Robin Barksdale, our church treasurer, is right there. Trustees, Representative Lynn Chrisman as chair, and then Lawrence Clements is her stand-in when she can't be at a particular meeting. He's wonderful. Our wonderful, talented cook administrator who can't sing in the back is Mike DeWeese. And then Marshall Brown, Jamie Granberry, Marilyn Hinton, Georgia Hobbs said she couldn't be here tonight, and Marion Schmidt. And it is a good working group. We appreciate that a lot. Okay. If we're going to have a strategy for endowment, if we have a strategy of what this committee does, there are three big words up there. Conservation of the principle. We want to protect that. And we want to produce income from the endowment, and we want to encourage growth of both principle and income. And, encouraging growth is encouraging people to make donations to the endowment and so forth. All right. With that, I am going to turn it over to the ever so talented Marilyn Hinton, who will give you some more information about various rules. Thanks. Oops, you okay?
Yeah,
okay.
It's my silly ankle. I twisted my ankle. So, been limping a little bit. I'm not used to this. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the general rules that the endowment tries to follow. And again, these come from our charge conference and our charge conference resolution and the Book of Discipline. And the main thing that Diane's talked about, if somebody makes a donation, that donation may go down in value if the market goes down, but we will never take money out of it. So for example, if you make a $100 donation and the market drops, now it's only worth $70. We will not even think about using that donation until it gets back up to the $100 or more. So we're always wanting to grow the principal, and so we're never going to take away from it. Future donations that come in are added into the past donations, and they're guarded. Something we used to struggle with in the committee, but monies that go into the offering plate, they go to the general operating fund. If it says endowment on it, then they will be sent over to be invested with endowment. The special named funds, and we have set up per the discipline and the charge conference resolution. If somebody wants to give $50,000, they can name the fund. They can say what it's to be used for. If they want to do it over time, the rules say 3 years, then that's what we do. And so we're lucky to have Chuck and Marilyn here tonight, who have recently done that for us. And in a few minutes, I want Chuck to talk about it a little bit. The general request for funds should be for physical unbudgeted needs. We don't want to pay power bills. We don't want to pay engineering bills. What we want to do is we want to have something that we can point to and say, the endowment bought that, like those automatic doors in the administrative wing. The handicap ramp. And so that we want it to be something physical that you can touch and people can know this is how the endowment helps. Once, as Diane said, when we get a request for funding, the Legacy Endowment Committee will review it, they will vote on it, and if approved, then we take it to the church council. To get there, it's like having a second signature on something. And so once they approve it, then it moves forward for funding. So we've got this money. How's it invested? We use the United Methodist Foundation, which is it's a 501c3 separate from the conference. And they invest the monies with the Colony Group, which is an investment firm, and I believe they're in Massachusetts. That may be wrong, but anyway, they make investments consistent with the church's goals. They don't like fund cigarette plants or tobacco. Yeah, none of that. It's got to be consistent with what the church believes. And they also don't try to invest just to make a whole lot of money real fast, because you know if you invest big, you can lose big too. So it's very conservative, and actually, but over time, it's averaged 8% if you look at every year. So it has performed. The monies can also be, we've got an investment group that we work with, and we also have an interest-only fund. And our endowment kind of treats it as, that's kind of our checking account. And once we move some of those profits into that, then we can approve a request and fund that request. And the interest isn't real high. I'm hoping maybe it'll go up, but it's right now at 2%. Okay, yeah, so now we're getting into the fun stuff. This is the chart from the United Methodist Foundation of their performance over time. There's been some bad years, just like there's been some bad stock market years, but it has recovered, and it equals out. Was it 2 years ago? 2020, the first 6 months, we lost money. The last 6 months, we made it all back and then some. So they're very successful with their investing. Yeah. And this year we're not doing so hot, but you know, we hope it will come back, and I think it will. See the next one, and this is one of my favorites. This is the one that shows how we grow over time, and when we put this together, it was kind of like, oh, this kind of shows that we're meeting our goals. The top orange line is the total fund value. And our goal is, again, for it to grow, and it has. The next line just shows shows investments. So when we get a big bequest, somebody gives to the church, and that has continued to climb. And the nice thing about it is, since 2018, we've gotten a lot more donations and bequests, and that's one reason why we wanted to educate the church a little bit, make sure everybody knows we have an endowment. And hopefully they will remember the church in their will, or like Chuck and Marilyn, honor us now. And Chuck, they can have the fun of watching it go up, hopefully next year. They're invested in sub-funds, and we have multiple sub-funds, and I'll go over them quickly. A couple of them were set up, and we don't manage them. And for example, the Cloyd Scholarship Fund, that is managed by the United Methodist Foundation, and they make the decision of who gets those scholarships. But it's all kind of in the same account. The Columbarium Fund is in there to take advantage of the market and hopefully grow that. That's managed by Marshall and his folks. But the others, the Lucart Fund, the Stribling Property Fund, we try to name them so we know what they're used for. The General Endowment Fund, the Burkhalter Fine Arts Fund, Mission and Outreach, Whitechapel and Willis Youth and Children, and the Development Fund. The Development Fund is our interest-only fund, and that's, again, kind of like our checking account. Okay, now this is another fun one. I was a math major, I like charts. They're fun. Again, this shows you the total value of our endowment, and then it shows you little wedges of where the money is in each sub-account. Obviously, our general fund has the biggest amount in it, and again, because it is general, and we can use it for a lot of different things. Next, this is a lot of stuff. These are things that the endowment fund has paid for since its inception, and things like we said, the handicap ramp, administrative wing doors, carpet cleaning machine. They're not all real glamorous things, but something that's needed. Lately, heating and air conditioning, because it's kind of hard to budget when your air conditioner is going to fail. Refrigerator in the kitchen, same thing. And because it's very hard to budget the lifetime of a single item. But it has, you see, we've accomplished quite a bit, and the total of that's over $272,000. And that's, again, only using the profits. Now, what is the best way to give to the fund? Anybody can give any amount at any time, as long as it's designated endowment. A lot of people do it, they wait for their estate to be settled, and they put it in their will. Memorial donations, again, when they come in, that goes into the fund. But we stress that you talk with your financial planner, you talk with your estate planner, your legal or financial advisor, because they're the experts in this. We're not. But they can help you decide and make provisions for remembering the church. There are lots of resources online for what the estate planners do, legal or financial. I just put a few on there, but there are many, many more. Tennessee estate planning law, estateplanning.com. United Methodist Foundation has a wonderful form that can help you start getting your ducks lined up. And they even have a worksheet that you can go through. You have to call and request it, but it's excellent. It's very good. And then you can do that and then go to your planner or your lawyer, and you've got everything ready. And it's actually pretty comprehensive. It takes a little while to go through all that. Now, let's see, before I get to there, Chuck, would y'all like to talk a little bit about how you set up your fund?
Yeah, sure.
We shall.
How long do I have?
We're running. You can tell if it's long as you want.
Well, let me just say that prior to the meeting, Diane asked me if I'd like to make a few comments about our motivation for Marilyn and I to set up this named sub-account of the Bellmaid United Methodist Church Endowment Fund, right? Okay. And last year, I'm not sure what month it was, but Diane and John Collette asked to come by our house and talk to us about estate giving for the church. And they did so. And if I remember correctly, John Collette mentioned that something more, greater than 20 members had recently passed away in our church, and not one of them made a legacy gift to our endowment. Now, things happen, pandemics come, people get sick, and they die. And if you haven't done some planning, at least to some extent in the future, you're going to be one of those members who have passed away without making a legacy gift to your own home church. And that kind of really stuck in our minds when we reflected on the meeting then that Diane and John had at our house, that we wanted somehow to make a legacy gift to our church. I'm hesitant to say this, but let me just say, so we started thinking about that. Talk with your estate planner. Well, just how easy would that be for us to do what we wanted to do? It turns out, without distributing too much personal information, we don't have a simple will where we take a pen out and add, oh, by the way, give X dollars to the church. We have living trusts. So any kind of a change in there is probably going to involve a secretary or a state lawyer or some kind of a meeting and maybe even a fee, and it's kind of a hassle, right? So that was one issue. I guess we could take and maybe change the beneficiary on some whole life insurance policies we have. Let the committee know, let the endowment committee know that we have done so that when we pass away, the insurance company would send some money your way. That might be less hassle. Seemed a little bit sterile, but that would be a possibility. So it turns out, though, for many years, Marilyn and I each year have made modest contributions already to an endowment fund. But it was an endowment fund set up in my name by my former and current graduate students on my 25th anniversary on the faculty at Vanderbilt, which would make it about 1998. And since then, we have given annually modest contributions, and some students have made some contributions. And it's great because the little bit of income or the modest income from that endowment fund went to the department chair of chemistry at Vanderbilt and was to be used to enhance the chemistry graduate program experience of chemistry graduate students. And it was kind of nice, actually, to have an endowment fund in one's name and to be able to contribute to it, but also every year there was income that went to benefit someone else, okay? Why does my church have to wait for me to die? No, seriously. And when there's maybe even a hassle to set it up. So what's the simplest thing to do that makes it a win-win for us and for the church? Well, Marilyn and I asked Diane and Marilyn, we'd like to set up a named sub-account fund within our church fund. So we would be able to make contributions in the few years that we have left, and for every one of those years, there would be some kind of income that could be used by the church. And just think if 10 or 20 of our church pledge unit families did that. We might be able to cover quite a bit of our administrative home expense, buy a few more HVAC units. But so that was the motivation, and that led us to think that way. And anyway, that's what we did then. We met with the principals of our Legacy Endowment Committee, Diane and Marilyn. John Collette was present, and the administrative business person of the church. And we set up the fund, I guess it was last fall, with an initial contribution. We made a contribution earlier this year and plan to do so every year going forward. And when we pass away, what happens? We have a nice fund already established. In your obit, your last line can be, in lieu of flowers, you know what. And we actually have a named fund already. You don't even have to make up one. Like our children or anyone who might want to make a memorial at that time, a memorial gift, there's a fund ready for that. When you're in tough times and you're near death, you don't have to go through this kind of administrative process and perhaps miss the opportunity of leaving a legacy gift to your own church. So anyway, that's what we've done. It's kind of an interesting experience, but for us, it's something we have been doing every year now for about 25 years with this other fund I mentioned. And we hope to give, Marilyn and I hope to make a contribution, like I said, annually to this fund, our fund in our name here in our endowment, church endowment, and watch it grow. It's really, time is, in that way, time is an asset to you when you're investing money. It turns out this year, that little account that we set up at my students set up for my honor at Vanderbilt, we're going to break a market value of $200,000. Well, that gives it's still modest money, but the income is at least modestly significant for the department to do something with to help out a graduate student or two in the chemistry program. And so we can enjoy the benefits now, and we know that something is set up in perpetuity, and that was our motivation for doing that. And so far, it's been working smoothly, right? Yes. And that's it.
So, starting to wrap this up, if you need more information on the endowment, its process, any of this, you can contact any member of the Legacy Endowment Committee. You can contact Sam, you can contact Mike, and they don't know the answer, we will get it. Sometimes we have to get an answer from the foundation, but we want you to know about this endowment and to understand it. So, the rest of Wednesday nights in October, where we're working on getting our ducks in a row. Next week is columbarium and funeral planning. Week after that, wills and advance directives. And the fourth week, which is the 26th of October, is in the planning stages. But we hope to use that to wrap it all together and let y'all know what to do with your ducks.